My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. I'm only here to even the score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. I'm down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
Wait, what? It's not Roger. It's not Alan. What is Big Ben doing to start this show? Welcome to the 91 podcast. This is episode 63. I have taken over the beginning, the intro of this show for one reason and one reason only. As you know, we record on Monday nights. And Monday night was the basketball season opener. Number 13, Texas A&M came into the arena tonight, came into a UCF home crowd that was rocking, and we ended the game on an 11-2 run, and we took them down at home, rushed the court, and enjoyed our 11th ranked win as a program, the fourth in the last 2 years, and started off this basketball season right. So I'm jacked up. Roger let me start the show, so I figured I would do the intro today. And I'll bring in the guys to talk about it, but I'm excited, and I hope you guys are too. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the awesome football win this week with Arizona, beating Arizona at home. And with all of that, let's bring in the guys and let's talk about it. So I'll start with the man, the guy that allowed me to kick off the show today, Roger Phipps.
Hey guys, I didn't allow you to do anything. Your energy was like off the charts. So, and this is a big enough win.
I'm on a little bit of a high right now, man.
No. This is a big enough win that we absolutely should have started the show this way. I mean, we were all watching. I was watching on my phone, as none of you know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I was traveling back from Atlanta with my daughter from a Billie Eilish concert. I was watching it on my phone, and our text thread was going nuts. So it was phenomenal that we were down for a bit. We started chipping away at it. We came back strong, and that defense came through. And, it wasn't our starters. It was our backup bench players. And, we had the offense that we needed down the stretch because we didn't start that way in the first half or the second half. So it was 100% show worthy. What a way to kick off the season, like the official season. Now we played Georgia last week, and that didn't work out as well as we would have hoped.
It's an exhibition. Who cares? This is for a real game.
Yeah, this is a for real game, and not only great for the Big 12, but I'm going to say this right now. If this team continues to play the way it did defensively, we had that press game, and we have people that have the ability to score. It's going to be a long season for a lot of our Big 12 brethren and a long one for us as well. That being said, let's go ahead and bring in Trey Neal, who told us we were going to be undefeated this year. Trey, are we a basketball school now? What's going on?
Oh, yeah, we're a basketball school. We're a basketball school. We are slowly becoming a basketball podcast.
Slowly?
Once
it was ripped out of my hands.
Takeover, baby.
Once our baseball team turns up, we're going to become a baseball. We're going to become a podcast of what Alan doesn't watch. That's what we're trying to do.
Alan watches basketball.
Hold on. I'm going to rip the Pac-12 here, or the former Pac-12. We are the podcast of champions. That's what we are.
Exactly.
For sure.
All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and bring Nobra to the stage because we all know it's really Nobra's show. Welcome back.
My bad, Nobra. I didn't bring you in first. My bad.
No, you're fine.
I got a little excited.
It's all good, bro.
Where's my hey now? Come on, bro. Did you forget already?
Hey now. Yeah, I already got it.
We're fresh off the best win of the year so far.
We need a double hey now, right? Because last week you were all like, hey now. And then this week we got a big football win. Whoa. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Let's get a hair flip with that one. All right. That's what I like to say. All right. Let's go ahead and bring in Alan next. Alan, welcome back to the stage. Well, hold on. Let's take the breaking hoops news down and see what his name actually is this week. Oh, it's just UCF football updates. Come on, I was expecting something clever like UCF finally got our win.
I was going to have it as because last week I had it just win one, and I was going to say we finally got one, but like the basketball news just overshadowed it, so I was like, whatever.
No, hold on. You got to change it to just win two, and then do this every single week because now.
All right, maybe you know what, you're right. Maybe that worked, so maybe I should do that. I'll take credit for our win, even though it was the space.
Well, we all know it wasn't Josh, right? So as long as everybody knows it wasn't Josh, and last but not least, but always last, Josh Lazar.
Look, we got to figure out where to put this rap in. I wrote it right on like Saturday night. So
well, okay, let's do this. Do this. We'll wait for the rap until we get to the football because right now we're talking all hoops. Let's talk about 100%. This game, boys. How did y'all feel? Because I was riveted that whole second half. Like the first half, it was like I was frustrated because we had 5 minutes. It felt very much like the old Johnny Dawkins types of games, right? Where it's like, oh my God, we go 10 minutes without scoring, but nothing but like 6 points, right? And then we came out the second half and there was fouling going on. And then there was, again, a little bit of a slump, but the boys turned it on. And like, let me say this about that. The arena was rocking. I don't think I've heard it that loud in a really long time when we were making that NIT run, or maybe last year at Kansas. But even then, I don't think it was that loud last year. This year, it was the Fronds were in full force. The student section showed up 30 minutes before. They were already full, and it was loud. I mean, loud and proud. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, it was evident over TV. As I told you guys on the text thread, unfortunately, it was unfortunately. I unfortunately only watched the last 10 minutes of the game because I was fortunately coaching my son in basketball tonight and his friends. So I had to make sure I phrased that sentence right. But seriously, I mean, just my son and I and the whole family just going nuts on the couch watching that last 10 minutes, and it just what impressed me the most, and I've already said it. Is the last 2.5 minutes of the game. We just continually needed to make stop after stop after stop. And we did that on every play. I mean, it was just whether it was JJ Taylor or Benny Williams, like we made plays when we needed to on both ends of the floor. Darius Johnson was spectacular tonight. What a season debut for him. I mean, 24 points, 5 threes. He had 5 assists. He had only 2 turnovers, played almost the entire game, 38 minutes of the game, just really was spectacular. And then you just saw from so many players. I mean, we had 10 players play tonight, and 8, I think it was 8 of those players played over 15 minutes or more. So we had to go deep into our bench because of foul trouble and other options. And each of those players had some great moments. I mean, our freshman, Mustafa Chiam, I think is how you pronounce his last name. I mean, he's supposed to be a high school senior right now, and he came in to a game against the number 13 team in the country, one of the best defensive teams in the country, and one of
rebounding.
One of the best rebounding teams in the country, and one of the most deepest offensive, talented teams in the country. I'm telling you, Texas A&M is a legit Final Four contender this year, in my opinion. I think they're just really deep, really talented. And for him to come in and have 6 blocks in this game, in a game that he fouled out, probably didn't play as many minutes as he probably could have.
And got hurt and came back in. Got a block.
Came back and had a huge block right after he came back in the game. That was special. Keyshawn Hall with the spin move with about 3-4 minutes left in the game to finish. And then you had that great play with about a minute left where Darius Johnson drives down in the paint, dishes it off to, I believe it was Benny Williams, and he had that and one dunk. I mean, it was just so many players just had a special moment in this game. It just kind of was a great display of what we've been talking about in the offseason was we've got a great collection of talent, arguably potentially the greatest collection of talent on paper that we've ever had in a UCF basketball team. But how can they come together? And what I was not worried about, but I think one of the things that I was kind of wondering going into this basketball season, just because I hadn't quite seen this team play yet, you don't see these exhibitions or whatever, is how are they going to come together defensively? Because we got a lot of scorers on this team. But what they showed in the last 5 minutes of that game, let alone the last 2 minutes of that game, to get, as I said, stop after stop after stop, I'm incredibly impressed. I'm so happy that we were able to start out the season this way, and I hope we can build upon it. And I'm going to shut up, but I'm super excited with what I saw tonight.
That being said, no, I agree, because here's the crazy thing. You mentioned a couple of things I wanted to point out, right?
Yeah.
Darius Johnson, right?
Yeah.
So DJ, when we were falling behind, it was like 9-10 points or whatever. We were missing free throws, back-to-back sets of free throws. Clearly Texas A&M were trying to foul us and trying to pull away a little bit, right? What the reason we were able to crawl back into that game was because Darius Johnson did what Darius Johnson does. They spread the floor and let him attack the paint. And when he attacks the paint, he's a good enough free throw shooter, right, that he's either going to make you pay by making a tough shot, or he's going to make his free throws. And he was, I think, going into that last few minutes, he had made 5 out of 6 free throws, and he only missed one more the rest of the way.
Yeah,
right?
So he was 7 of 8. He finished the game 7 of 8. You're right.
So what that means is that you've got someone who's a senior that you can put the game on his shoulders, and all these years he's been doing that for, and I think maybe it's gets him to this season and someone that they can do that with when they need to settle down and just chip away. And that's done on purpose because it extends the game. Right. So that was a big piece of that. Right. Then the other big piece of that for me that you mentioned is this was not a stats game because of the defense. Defense is the great equalizer. Right. And what we were able to do, and what's really impressive to me, is that great defense that we saw last year that we had been waiting for from Johnny Dawkins with those presses that he told us about on his first press conference, right? Press conference. On that first press conference, he told us that's what he wanted to do and play fast, right? And he did it finally last year. And this year with this team, he was able to do that. Every time we scored off of those free throws, it allowed us to set up the press, and that press defense harassed them in the last few minutes, and they didn't know how to deal with it. They were able to disrupt our flow, but we were able to take time off of the play clock and disrupt what they were trying to set up, trap, and get them early into turnovers. Now, where we need a little bit of work, clearly, is those 2-on-1 situations, because we got in 2 different 2-on-1 situations where we didn't come away with points. So that's one opportunity for us to grow. But if you look at the stats, and Alan was telling us about the stats a little bit ago, right? If you look at the stats, Texas A&M held all the stats, out-rebounded us 42-24, assists 13-13. So we're getting more assists this year. This is good. Total turnovers 11-10. So the assist to turnover ratio for both teams was actually pretty even and pretty good. But everything else, you would think that they ran away from the team. So, I mean, this was a hard-fought, gritty game. Josh, what do you think?
I absolutely love that game, and I'm so annoyed that I had to give away my tickets to it. And because of all of the things that were going on in my life, I'm glad I was able to catch most of it live. And it was good. It was really good. The end of both halves were a grind out to even or to win the game. We kind of had this really reasonable size deficit the first half and grinded back to even in the first half. The second half, we kind of, I wouldn't say come out slow, but Texas A&M came out like shot out of a rocket and built the lead. And we just got them into foul trouble where we were getting the 1-on-1s, although we missed a couple. And it was just this slow grind to get more things back in the game. I loved it. And Ben and I were talking before we started this. There was a couple of really, really amazing plays. The left-handed reverse, the left-handed 360 to open space.
By
Keyshawn Hall,
Yeah,
and he had a couple of those. I mean, there's just with some significant players not playing big minutes or not playing at all, Sellers and Keon Johnson. So this is the team we all wanted to see for a significant amount of time. And sometimes it took them time to gel. And by the time they gel, you're in the gauntlet, like last year, you're in the gauntlet of Big 12, and you have this mix of amazing wins and like, what the heck is going on here? So I am excited. And I believe that I wouldn't say the best is yet to come. I really would be interested. Like, how do you throw Sellers back into here? I mean, you're going to. He's starting as soon as he's back. Yeah. But where does all of this mesh and gel when other pieces are back in? It's exciting, and we have probably a couple weeks before we're going to have some hard games coming up, so we'll get to.
What are you talking about? This is the number 13 team in the country. As Ben said,
after this game. So after this game, we have a couple weeks to figure this out.
Yeah, because we got Kansas better that we got this. It's like we're playing with house money at this point. I mean, it's just one of the things that I like that I also like to see during this game is there was and Roger, you touched on it, how where there were moments in the second half, even in the down the stretch in the last 5 to 8 minutes, where like you mentioned, the 2-on-1s, right? We had a steal. I think it was by JJ Taylor. It was a steal, and he takes it down the court and tries a reverse layup, and we missed the layup. And then Texas.
That was Benny Williams.
Yeah, Benny Williams. Excuse me. Yeah. But then immediately Texas A&M takes it down and scores a bucket. Like when you're going against a really good team like that, like Texas A&M is, and stuff like that happens down the stretch to put you down 6, put you down 8 when you're real close. We cut the lead. We cut the lead to I think 4, and then that was when their best player, who's also his name is escaping me now, Taylor. Yeah. Wade Taylor. Excuse me. Who's by the way, the SEC preseason player of the year. This kid is amazing. He hits a 3 from the logo. I mean, those are the types of things when you're going against a really good team and you kind of are still figuring out who you are. Like those are backbreakers. Like those are things that like it sucks the air out of the building and you're like, well, we got close. But no. Like this team got better after those moments. They buckled down more. Like you mentioned Keyshawn Hall. He did that spin move, great layup, we got some momentum. And then he fouled out right after that. And he's out of the game. Now you're like, well, what do we do now? And they just seemed to find it seemed to be every time a player was taken out for whatever reason, another player just stepped up and said, this is going to be my moment. And After Keyshawn Hall went out, it was Jordan Ivy Curry for a few minutes, and then it was JJ Taylor to finish out the game. Benny Williams had his moment. Like it was just I think that's what I'm so excited about is that it was a complete team win, and they seem to have their back, have each other's back, especially down the stretch, which is just such a great sign for a team that has 11.
They didn't look sped up.
No.
Yes.
The whole time
they
were playing, they didn't look like they were sweating it, and they didn't look sped up.
No.
And that was what was impressive considering the youth movement on here. And then the other part, and I'm gonna swing this over to Josh here in just a second, because one of the things that happened this weekend was Kirk Spiro was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and was on campus and had the Kirk's jerks. I will tell you this right now. after that big moment that you were talking about with that 3, right? They went back, scored, and as soon as they scored, the whole building was into it. And I have not, I kid you not, I've not heard the arena, at least because I had to watch it on TV on my phone because I was driving back from Atlanta, unfortunately. I have not heard the building that loud after a moment like that in a really, really long time. And it would have made Kirk and Kirk's Jerks proud. And Josh, I know you were part of that group, so I'm going to let you kind of speak to that.
Sure. I mean, that game, well, 2 things. One, with everyone kind of being calm and picking their moments and grinding it out, that's a Johnny Dawkins influence right there. It is 100%. And on top of that, the good coach, bad coach would have been 1,000% right there. I would have loved if the students knew some of these traditions we had when I was back in the Kirk Jerks. Yeah, I was part of that when we were in like the garage and we were putting up the we don't have money, but we own Stetson signs and the Troy is not a state sign. This has been Stout era stuff. So the Kirk Jerks, if you don't know, if you don't remember, the Kirk Jerks was the support group, the student group that was a part of the basketball team that was at every single game, making horrible signs, making fun of coaches and everything else. I'm sure it was some type of play on the Gators had some type of thing like that for Billy Donovan and whatnot. And I don't know where it came from, but I know when I was a student, I started participating in buying shirts. I wish I still had those. And we were bad. Like we would go to Stetson and take over their Stetson's arena and start, making it a home game when we cared a ton about Stetson. I'm not going to talk about last year. So I unfortunately could not go. I had some family commitments. I did buy my new shirt, but I got a bunch of texts behind with Biggie, Anthony Bencomo, and a couple of the other people. Lisa Clendenin is all this. But I will tell you this. A, it was a wonderful Hall of Fame inauguration for Kirk. B, I wish all these students had the unified voice that we had back then. Like they know how to left right someone when they foul out, but we had a whole set of chants and countdowns and things that we would do. And the students are amazing. Do not get me wrong. You can see it at this game. You can see it at the game in Kansas. You can see it every game I'm not at. But what you really see is that there's something there, and it really, 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 I wish we can kind of pass some of that torch down and organize them a little more formally, because there's some wonderful, like we would at least get one shooter to shoot at like 15 seconds with a fake 10 second countdown at like 25 or 20 seconds in, like every single game. So I loved that history. I love that Kirk got his flowers as he should. And I love that the next basketball game after this happens, our team is gelling amazingly quickly, winning a humongous game, and the crowd and the students are going crazy. Like that's just
I love that the crowd and the students were doing it this game, because this game they absolutely provided energy. They were absolutely loud. If they were trying to call any, I mean, obviously a point guard, when they're coming down the court, you've got the numbers too that call the plays, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that will disrupt when they're yelling ball, or whatever, or pick, or whatever. Yeah. That will 100% disrupt that on the court, because that was loud. That was 100% loud. And Alan, did you actually watch this game, or was this another sport that you don't watch?
Of course I watched the game. Yeah. No.
All right. What did you think as someone who doesn't watch other sports?
I do watch basketball.
He watches. He has 2 sports that he really watches. All right, men's basketball is one of them.
Yeah, football and basketball. I've said it a million times.
I know.
So yeah, I mean, it was obviously a great way to start the season. It reminded me of like all of the big wins that we had last year. I think, Ben, you said there was 4 ranked wins. Looking at those scores, they were all kind of in the mid 60s, low 70s. We'd hold, these opponents that are generally score more than this, and we didn't particularly play well on offense. I mean, if you look at the stat sheet, Texas A&M they out-rebounded us. They won the battle of points in the paint. They had more points off of turnovers, but we got it done defensively. I mean, that to me reminded me of kind of just like a vintage Johnny Dawkins coaching performance. Like, we're not going to outscore a lot of teams. I mean, ever since I've been watching UCF basketball, I remember very few years where we were a high-powered offense. It just never seemed to be that way. We were usually a team that's, just most likely going to get it done on defense, and that's what happened today. I mean, the fact that we held them scoreless for 4+ minutes there at the end and went on an 11-2 run to just kind of take over, and then we have that crowd momentum and that crowd support on top of it. That reminded me, not as big in nature, but similar to how we were able to beat Kansas or Texas Tech last year, or, Texas, and some of those big wins that we had, just were able to get it done defensively. And I think that's how we're going to get it done this year. But that being said, we were missing firepower, guys that can score like Sellers. And obviously there's other, guys like Mikey Williams that are banged up, and we had some guys foul out. But despite, only having 5 guys returning from last year, and really only 2 or 3 that were significant, parts of the rotation, and having 11 new guys, they looked pretty, good chemistry, I would say. I know it's a small sample size, 1 game, but that was great to see. And now you talk about going into the rest of non-conference play with presumably a lot easier games. I mean, we could go on a nice little run here, and the continuity, I think, with just Johnny Dawkins and this new, I wouldn't say new brand, but this type of brand that he's establishing in the Big 12 with a defense first mentality seems to still kind of just shock teams, these opponents that we're playing. I don't think they're ready for it. I think they just kind of see the name on the schedule and maybe don't realize, maybe we're not going to out athlete you as much or run up the score, but defensively we're going to be very stout, and that's how we were able to win the game.
I mean, you got to think, though, Jalen Sellers was, I believe, top 10 in the Big 12 in scoring last year. And Dior Johnson was also banged up, only played 5 minutes in this game. He averaged 30 points in JUCO last year and averaged 45 in the JUCO national playoffs last year, averaged 45 points.
Yeah, I remember talking about him.
Those are 2 guys that are huge scorers that are out of our lineup, out of our rotation right now. But I mean, guys like that we saw tonight, though, obviously Darius Johnson had a great night. Keyshawn Hall. We've got guys that actually are can score at multiple levels and in multiple ways. I think this is one of the more higher power offensive talented teams that Dawkins has ever had. And so that's just what I'm going to keep using the word. I feel like it's UCF preseason right now, a UCF football preseason, but that's what has me so excited about this team, because what you saw tonight was a vintage, down the stretch, especially a vintage Johnny Dawkins, lock them down on defense and finish out the game on defense game. And you saw those stretches of offensive lulls. But I think that this team in general, especially when we get some key players back, has some extreme offensive talent. So if we could find that special sauce, who knows what we could do this season in the Big 12.
Yeah, and we still have a light schedule to start, and then we go to play Wisconsin and either Pitt and LSU in West Virginia. And I will say this: I don't feel like this is potentially fool's gold like we had on football and TCU at the second half. Right? We thought we had something, and we didn't, and then we do again. So that was that. I feel like what you're seeing today, if you are a football fan and you don't pay too much attention to basketball until we win games like this, I'm not going to say yet, maybe Ben will already. I think this is going to be a different team this season than last season. And that team was not that bad. It's just getting first year in the Big 12, and it was better than we expected. Last year, Ben and I and others were like, we're barely getting 3 wins in conference.
Well,
this could be.
Josh, the difference is the talent.
You're
talent
right.
For these guys, and this is where I was going to go with this too.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were going to get and how quickly we were going to get it, right?
True.
And the reason I would say that is because the collection of talent that we brought in all had character issues, right? all of them had issues coming in. Mikey Williams had his issues. Dior Johnson had it. Benny Williams had his issues, etc. Right. And at the end of the day, I think, people called it last chance U. You heard some opposing fan bases talking about that, right? But all of these guys were high 4 stars or 5 stars, right? So now they've all gone through their issues. And the one thing we've always said about Johnny Dawkins is what? If you listen to all of our past
high character guy, the guy that I would want to coach my son, right? So I think what you're seeing is a byproduct of them buying in. We've got a bunch of talent to choose from. Georgia and a lot of these preseason games are going to be, mixing and matching to see what rotations work and which ones don't. But what I'm impressed with is that we have the talent that can overcome some of those challenges offensively, but defensively, they played the scheme and they played within their scheme and they played it well. And, with the small ball, because we've got Tiem, right? We've got JJ Taylor, who was spelling him, right? And they both played well, which, dude, he's definitely a 5-star. Watching him play, he's a freshman. But he's a young freshman who should be a senior in high school right now, but he played like a future star. Right? He's every bit of the highest ranked high school recruit we've ever had at UCF, and he is every bit of it tonight. The limited minutes that I saw him play, I'm just very impressed with.
I mean, he came back in, and we're going to pivot the football. He came back in with 4 fouls and then just immediately started to take over until he felt like you can see and feel it. There's almost 0.0% chance he is coming back. If he keeps doing this day in and day out, he will be in the lottery. I feel pretty confident if we keep seeing the same type of progress.
All right. So we got the basketball not quite out of our blood, but we got this game. The immediate reaction out of it. There's so much more we could go into it from a scheme perspective and what we saw on the court, and we'll do that as the season evolves. But this one, I mean, literally, it was finishing right before we started recording. So we were Ben especially was feeling it, and we needed to get it out there first. So being said, let's talk about it's been a great week for Knight Nation, and let's go ahead and pivot. All right, there it is. All right, to football. And guess what?
What?
The 5-game losing streak goes down.
It's over.
Pause.
It's over. Yeah, pause, period, exclamation point, finish.
Done.
And not only did it go down, but it went down in convincing. Oh, my gosh. Fashion. Wow, Josh.
You did it twice. What am I supposed to do?
Let me have this one. I mean, geez, be excited. Be excited.
I am. Basketball, football. We're beating basketball and football schools that are good at basketball and football sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. But here's the exciting thing, right? We took the risk, and we came out. We came out swinging. And for those of you. What are you booing? That was our last. That was last week's caption for the video. Whether we should take the risk or not.
I know.
I'm getting ready to mute you. You're taking all the wind out of my sails here. All right. So listen, we end the 5-game losing streak. We beat Arizona 56-12, and we found an offense because we were able to stretch the field. What have we been screaming about all season long? One-dimensional, stretching the field. We came out passing on the first series. Dylan Rizk, they couldn't load the box because we were able to move it. We had screens, we had slants, we got other receivers involved, and it made it very, very difficult for Arizona. Now, Arizona, to be fair, does not have a great defense. They do not, and I want to put that out there. But what you saw is what we were talking last week and before. This is how Gus's offense is supposed to run, but you got to have a passing quarterback to be able to do it. This is what KJ Jefferson was supposed to do.
Plays. Yeah, and
him not calling plays.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that for a second, right? This is still Gus's plays. There's nothing that we haven't seen this season. The execution was different, and I will say this about Gus. is whether right or wrong. I think the bigger question is whether we should have slid over to someone else at quarterback before this. But what Gus Malzahn did do, and what he always does, is the talent that he has at quarterback, he switches his plays up to miss it, right? To match it, right? The problem is he didn't recognize the quarterback to begin with.
He is a type.
This is what Kate. No, he's not even a type. KJ
No,
Jefferson,
he has a type. He's a type of quarterback.
KJ Jefferson, if you watched him in Arkansas, this is how he played. He was a pocket passer who could climb the ladder, who could run when he got in trouble.
When he was 35 pounds lighter.
Yeah, he came in unprepared.
Well, I get it. But my point is this is what the KJ we thought we were getting, and Dylan Rizk is the KJ that we should have had, and he played like KJ did at Arkansas, right? But he did it exponentially better. Now, again, this defense,
I think they're the exact same style, though. I mean, he's definitely like not going to bowl someone over and
no, from the running perspective too. But if you've watched him at Arkansas, this is how KJ played. He didn't bowl people over. He wasn't a run first quarterback. He was a guy that was in the pocket, danced around the pocket, tried to get it downfield, and if he didn't, he took off and ran. That 35-yard run that Dylan Rizk had, whatever it was, he read it, saw that it was open, saw that, and he ran for 35 yards. That's exactly what KJ did. That being said, right, the question is why did we not see that with Jakuri versus Jakuri with Dylan Rizk? And recognize the fact that we need to be able to pass the ball for this offense to work. So that was not the only change, though. Defensively, we found out this week that, at least for now, Gus Malzahn actually did stay out of the offensive side of the ball and spent 50% of his time with the defense, right? And that we actually did have someone that called their own plays, right? So the only thing, we saw a lot more variety this week. We saw them stretching the field. We had inside runs, A-gap runs. We had zone reads. We had guys hitting the C-gaps. We were passing in space. We had end arounds. We had slants. We had a tight end that was active. We've been screaming about the tight end before the season started. Let's get this tight end involved in the game. And Jacoby Jones has come into his own for the past 2 weeks. And most importantly, we've got someone who can pass the ball. And that's what we saw this week. What do you guys think? What did you guys see this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously a lot of the result of this game was the fact that we had a competent passer, but all the things you just listed, like using the tight ends and end arounds and slants in the middle of the field, that wasn't being, in my opinion, called as much under Gus. I get it. When you don't have a quarterback, that's probably a lot more difficult to do, but he also was the one that took, 8 weeks before he went to a quarterback that can do that. I mean, when you see that the first two quarterbacks can't do that at all, and we're sitting there almost thinking it's the wide receiver's fault, but it's not. I mean, it was clearly like, I don't know how you can miss that for 8 weeks and see that just couldn't be done. And we weren't calling those plays even in a limited amount, maybe a few times here and there, which once again, that could be just purely a factor of not having a quarterback that can do it. But to see that, I mean, that to me kind of is what you said. That is how a Gus Malzahn offense should run. That's how I think, not obviously 56 points every week, but that's how we all felt that we were going to see this offense. We went into this season with essentially zero concerns about the offense. Maybe we thought the O-line wasn't too deep, or the receiving room obviously took a hit by losing Javon Baker, but like in general, we weren't that nervous about the offense. And that became one of the defining parts of the season, having no passing game to rely on whatsoever. So, I mean, just the mere fact that Dylan Rizk can just pass, just be a competent, completely took away the opposing defense's ability to stack the box. Just the mere threat of it. And the result of that was 602 yards, almost a 50-50 split in yards between passing and rushing, a little bit more on the rushing side. But I mean, look at that. Just the mere threat of a pass was able, and it wasn't RJ Harvey. A lot of the yards he was getting this year was after contact. In this game, he had 5 yards of space before he was even getting touched by, the defense, because he had a lot more space just because they couldn't stack the box anymore. So to see that was really, really great to see. And I know the season kind of went down the tank and we had the 5-game losing streak, but at the end of the day, a win just feels so much better than a loss. And I know, the best we can do at this point is probably just a bowl game, but it's great to see that. And it gives me hope for the rest of the season and even next year. I mean, if hopefully we can keep him, I know we have some potential looming changes potentially with the staff, with a lot of players and the transfer portal and losing commits and all the things that have happened. But, it shows me that we have the talent to compete with almost anyone in the conference. And if we just play the right brand of ball and we have the right quarterback, a lot of things can happen. And that's a lot of things that have happened right with UCF in recent memory since 2017. That was very reminiscent of that. And it was excellent to get back on track in such a convincing fashion. And it feels like we have a chance to finish out the season really strong and get some of those bad memories of that, losing streak away a little bit. I'd rather at least finish strong and have not a sour taste in my mouth as the season ends. And honestly, at this point, if we can finish even with one more win than we did last year, at least you can call the season as somewhat of an improvement. Not as well, what we're looking for, but it's better than nothing.
It's a winning season. And here's the thing that I want us to continue to succeed this way, not just for Dylan Rizk, not just for the fan base, but so that Gus Malzahn has no reason to retake the play calling duty.
Yeah.
If we keep winning this way, that means Tim Harris will solidify himself as offensive coordinator. We know he's a good recruiter, and he called a balanced game. Now, he was able to call a balanced game because we could pass the ball. We weren't passing 50%. We weren't passing at a rate of 50%. But to me, I think the best of both worlds, and I think we all said this last week, and many others have said it too, right? Gus as a CEO who can manage a lot of the bigger picture things like recruiting. He's been successful at it. You said it last week, Alan. The one thing we've been, good at was recruiting and then winning. Or maybe Ben said it. I can't remember. I'm sorry if I'm misquoting, but one of you said that all we've had was recruiting and the Gasparilla Bowl win, right? That's what you said on last week's show.
I think a couple of people said that, to be honest.
So at the end of the day, my point is if we can, right, basically force Gus to understand that it's okay, you don't have to call the plays and focus on the things that he's good at, then that's a big win for UCF's program, because Gus can be successful here if he's got a good offensive coordinator and someone he can trust, a defensive coordinator, so he can go do program building, because that is one thing he's good at.
Yeah, and I think one of the things one of the lines that I texted you guys earlier from his, I think it was Gus's press conference, or it might have been right after the game on Saturday night, but he was talking every once in a while. We kind of like joke around about the coach talk that Gus Malzahn is so good at, right? Like, he doesn't reveal too lot, but every once in a while you get a little bit of a slip where he reveals something without even meaning to. And one of the things that he said was about Dylan Rizk is that it was so nice to be able to play. It was just so nice to be able to call any play in the book and have it be run.
Yep.
And my God, to hear him say that, and he just breezed right by it. Like he said it as part of like a longer paragraph of talking about Dylan Rizk, but like I definitely caught that, because I mean, we've been talking about it all season where, honestly, we just don't feel like KJ Jefferson even seemed to know the playbook, or if he did know the playbook, he's not there's something about it that he didn't have the ability to really shine within that playbook. You know what I mean? And then you see Ja'Curry Brown go in there, and it just seems like he, has a live arm, if you will, like he can throw the ball hard. But far. Can he read the progressions down the field? And then you get a guy like Dylan Rizk that just kind of does everything he does like all of the aspects of being a good college quarterback. He just does those things well. Like he does those solid. Like he's not.
He is the best. He plays quarterback.
He just plays the position very well, and you saw it. And so we just talked about Ja'Carri Brown, that he can throw the ball a mile, right? Like so. If you're on the 50-yard line and you'd like to take a shot at the end of the half, you think to yourself, well, wouldn't you mind it'd be nice to have a Justin Holman-like arm that could just fire a cannon down the field and see what we got. But no, you have Dylan Rizk in there, and Ja'Carri Brown doesn't get that throw off. Because he scrambled.
In the exact same scenario.
He read the defense, scrambled, and rolled out to his left and threw it, gave his receivers a chance down the field. And because he extended the play and he made a great throw. And that's just one example. But I think the best example of everything that we're talking about are the back-to-back 99-yard, 89-yard drives by UCF's offense,
third downs,
that and continually getting the first down, converting on third down, but 99-yard, 89-yard back-to-back drives, 4 touchdowns, not for field goals or just red zone tries that we score no points. 4 touchdowns. I think that was the point of the game that I was just like, all right, I hope that Gus realizes that he has the quarterback, and Gus realizes that he needs to be this higher level CEO. Like everything started to be solidified, in my opinion, in that time in the second quarter where we went on those 2 drives, because it was just such a great example of like us being able to do things that we feel like we have the talent to be able to do all season long, but we just haven't been able to execute it yet. For lack of play calling or lack of execution or both. It's just was just great to see that, and I think that extension is of the game. So
a couple things to add on to that, Ben. Like what solidified it, right, was there was we had a trips left and a single receiver on the right, so we spread them out. We had a trips left and that single receiver on the right. So he pre-snap, he read what the defense was giving him, right? He dropped back, did not even look to the trips left.
Yeah.
Right? And threw it to the right because he knew he would be open and threw him open. He threw it in a bunch of spots where receivers were able to not only catch the ball, like they were going one direction, but they were able to turn around the defender and be able to continue that play, right? So what I saw was a quarterback that could read it, and all of what Malzahn said this week was, we've got a guy who's been in the system the longest out of all of the quarterbacks, right? And he knows the system inside and out. He was able to read the defenses pre-snap and be able to go to the right place or pull the ball, understand what the defense was doing when they were not in the middle where we had numbers. And he was able to run the ball effectively, right? So when you do that, you're going to make it really, really hard and really, really difficult on the defense. And that resulted in third down efficiency, 6 out of 9 on third downs and 1 for 1 on fourth, right? And when you have that, you're going to win a lot of football games. Trey Neal, what did you see out there?
I mean, y'all have hit like pretty much everything on the head. To me, like I said it earlier, I went and rewatched it. The energy the team plays with just him at quarterback was night and day. I mean,
Rizk had the Riz, and Rizk had the Riz, and he was bringing it to everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, like the TCU game, and my wife said something about it, like at the end of the UCF when we lost, when he came in the fourth quarter. I was like, shoot, like she was like, why is he doing all that? I'm like, I don't blame him. The kid's probably not supposed to be playing. He might not play ever again, and he goes in and drives a touchdown. Like, that's a cool moment. Like, I get why he's excited. Then I see it like the next week, he's starting. But then I see him like just the guys on the side. Ja'Carri Brown was happy for him. Like, he was excited with him. Like, just to see that, that was the most noticeable thing for me, was just the energy was contagious when he played. And he plays just, I don't want to say like it's like Mackenzie Milton, but like that's the kind of energy at least I saw last week was just the guys gravitate to him, whether it's because they know he's just good and he's finally being able to show it, or just, like on the Hail Mary, he literally took his helmet off, which should have been a flag, but he took his helmet off and is just running and screaming down the sideline. Like he's literally going insane, like he just won the Super Bowl off the Hail Mary. And we're a 3-5 team. That's the kind of guy you want to play for. Like that's the kind of guy you want to just be a part of that group. That was like the most noticeable thing to me. Obviously, like you guys said, the fact that we have a quarterback who is a viable passer consistently opens up the offense. I mean, we legitimately shut out 50% of our offense because we couldn't consistently throw. Ja'Cory Brown, I think these
actually I'd say 75% because
probably,
of Pittman, Kobe Hudson.
Yeah,
because that's the only one they throw to, and then Kobe Jones.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, me and Alan were like, do we even have good receivers on the roster outside of Kobe Hudson? And we literally, Jacoby Jones is a beast. Like, I'm like, where is this guy coming from? Why haven't we used him? Like, what is going on? But
I think he might have been a little bit dinged up all year, but
yeah,
to be fair, but yeah.
But like, it's like, okay, so we do actually have the talent, but like, I'll speak to that about Dylan Rizk. Like, that's the best part. What's frustrating is it's taken us 8 games to realize that this was the best quarterback on our roster when we've seen it. They've seen him for 2 years. They know what he can do. And yeah, Gus has a type. He has a type of quarterback that he likes, the very mobile guy or a big physical kind of quarterback that can run over, like I said, run over a linebacker or outrun, the DBs. And it's just frustrating that for 8 games, we kind of beat, well, I won't say 8 games. The latter part of the year, we kind of beat a dead horse of we can't throw the ball. Why are we not trying to throw the ball? Or why aren't we putting in a guy that can throw the ball? Or can any of our quarterbacks throw the ball? Those are quite wow, we threw slants. Like those are the things that we were truly worried about.
Wow, we threw slants.
But like just seeing Dylan Rizk come in and like we said, you don't have to be a JRP runner. You don't have to be Curry Brown. You just have to be able to get 4 to 5 yards.
Rizk looked mobile. He looked very mobile.
Yeah, and he can get you 4 to 5 yards and nothing's there. And
or he can get you 35 and be smart enough to slide, right?
That's smart quarterback play. And I'm just like, if we knew this from early on, how did they not see it? I'm not saying Dylan Rizk was the guy.
He's not allowed to block anymore, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want your quarterbacks blocking anyway. But Josh was saying in the spring, he was night and day the best thrower of the football.
Oh yeah, clearly.
It's like, how do they miss that? Again, I'm happy we freaking won. I didn't think we were winning another game, to be honest. But hey, we did it, and I'm gonna be honest. We could probably finish 500, get to a bowl game if he plays, this kind of football, this balance. And then we haven't even talked about the defense, but we'll get into it. I think it was. Overall, great game. I'm more excited about the energy that it brought because I think that's what kind of carries teams. You look back at any of our best teams, it was exciting. Just we had an energy about us that was, and I'm even talking like 2013. There was an energy that we played with. There was a passion that UCF plays with. I think that's a part of us. And I felt like we've kind of lost it in the last few years when we get to the tough parts of the year. I feel like we always start off hot, then we fizzle and we get to that rubber meets the road moment, and we realize, we don't have that passion. I think we have found a guy who we can kind of find and build around that. And I think,
I think we had it last year with JRP. I just think he got hurt.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
a lot of people started appreciating JRP this season. Let's just put it that way.
Shoot, I think we appreciated it last year. Like we were like, listen, we complain a lot, but I think I'd rather have him out here than
than any quarterback before. Yeah, Rizk.
It
also makes you wonder what other hidden gems are on this roster that we're not getting, that are not, or we're not.
Burdell Richardson.
Because I mean, you talk about Jacoby Jones. whether he was dinged up or not, I was looking at the PFF stats. He had in the Cincinnati game, the game before that, I think, which was Florida, Cincinnati, and then the one after that, he had a total of 3 snaps. Unless he was dealing with a really bad injury, there's no reason he should have only had 3 snaps if he's clearly the second best receiver on the team. Granted, I know once again couldn't throw. We didn't have a guy that could throw, but Kobe Hudson had multiple 100-yard games with KJ and whoever else we trotted out there. So we did not give him, I don't think, a fair shake. And it makes you wonder what other guys, I mean, look at Andrew Harris.
Well, hold on.
Exactly.
Hold on. I can kind of answer that because Jacoby even answered it himself. So last year he was hurt, right? When he transferred over, serious injury. Came back this year. He was hurt several times, most recently with a hamstring injury. And he and Gus both said that he was testing the injury out and didn't fully trust himself, right? And you see this a lot with people who have MCL, PCL, ACL type injuries, right? And when they don't do that, when they don't trust themselves, and Jacoby said it himself, I've got to worry about myself and putting myself in a position where I start to create separation. In the last couple of weeks, I've been able to do that, right? And so Gus has said it, Jacoby said it. Basically, he didn't trust his body getting back from that injury because it was a pretty major injury.
He's not the only guy, though. I mean, that may be one.
No,
example.
but what we're asking the question: why wasn't he seeing the field more? And a big part of that was self-admittedly on his own. But last week he had over 100 yards. This week he had over 100 yards. But I think the most important piece of this, and this is the stat from this game that I want to give you guys, 2 stats: 11.8 yards per attempt passing and 44 rushing attempts. We had 22 or 27 last week. Okay. So against BYU. Time of possession, 31-21 versus 28-39. The first half, we had as much time of possession in the first half as we did the entire game against BYU.
Wow.
Right? So that should tell you something, from the defense's perspective, because we haven't even talked about the defense yet. Yeah. At one point, we had held them to 5 yards rushing. I think it ended up 12 or something like that, or 7. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. I'll have to look it up. But it was 5 yards rushing in the third quarter, and we had 7 touchdowns. We had 7 touchdowns, and they had 5 yards rushing. And think about this. We slowed it down after the third quarter.
We had 5 rushing touchdowns, and they had 5 total rushing yards when you add the sacks in. I mean, it really was.
The D-line played phenomenal.
It was the only thing I wouldn't say concerned. The game coming up against Arizona State, they're a better team. I know that Arizona's
very
defense,
similar team to who we are. That's the thing.
And Arizona's defense was not good. They lost a bunch of players. It wasn't good.
Oh yeah,
and you still don't give up 56.
Their scheme was pretty bad too.
Yeah, and that's
they
more
one of the best QB wide receiver duos in the conference, offensively speaking.
Oh yeah.
For the ASU their running back is
I'm saying Arizona. It has one of the best QB.
Oh yeah, there's we definitely held them. We held them in check a little more than I expected. And even one of the few people who picked us to win right this week, I didn't watch that entire game, and I put the entire chat on do not disturb until I was done with this family event I was a part of. And I came back and I texted the guys. It was in my text chalk or past that point at this point, but I watched that game, and after the first missed field goal, I was like, here it comes again. And then I saw the defense, and I'm like, this is really good. And when it became 21-0 and the accuracy was there, we can get their slants, passes over the middle isn't a scary thing. He's threading the needle sometimes a little tight too, a couple times, but
hey, say that
to
build off of that. those throws that he did thread the needle on,
They were accurate.
They were accurate and they were phenomenal. And they had good velocity on them going into.
Correct. I mean,
he's got an arm. It's not
Yeah.
that he doesn't. It's not just he's not one of these quarterbacks that's a game manager that just knows where to throw it.
No.
And that 50-yard throw also kind of proved it. And physically gifted, as far as his height, and his measurements, as far as his body, like his height, his weight, everything like that.
Yeah, he's not a small guy.
He's not a small guy.
No.
We're talking about
He's going to be a durable quarterback
Risk,
for you. So a lot of people were talking Blake Bortles 2.0 here, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
I'm
He's got a long way to go before Blake Bortles, right? But what I'm saying to that is, from a quarterback's perspective, you want a.
I know, Trey. I know.
I get it. From a quarterback's perspective, though, right? When you're talking about a quarterback, you want someone who's 6'2" to 6'4", right? You want someone who's around 220 to 240 pounds, just so that they're durable, and you want somebody who can pass. And so, from that perspective, he checks a lot of those boxes of what you want in a P4 quarterback. And he's a redshirt freshman. And Josh, I'm sorry, I just wanted to build off your point, not take away from it. So keep going.
You're right. And this, I don't know if we're transitioning, and we will transition to this. And we don't. This is the feel. This is the question. Let's see what happens in Arizona State, right? Because they have a real defense. The only games they lost were in conference. They're 3-2 in conference and 6-2 overall. It's at a hard place to play. And if he does anything close to this, regardless of outcome of the game, right? Sometimes you just lose to better teams.
Oh, yeah.
They are a good team. If he does anything like this within that area, I think you're not making like Bortles comparisons, but we both say what the heck happened during those 5 games. And then we all say, okay, we have a shot of actually getting to a bowl game and hopefully continuing the progress in the future, and not just finding the next new shiny and plugging them in when you have someone that looks like can fit your mold. Like, he has a longer run than KJ had all year.
Well,
now,
I mean, let's say that 20 of 25 passing. He's not going to be 20 of 25 passing every game, folks.
No.
So just don't get disappointed if he makes mistakes. McKenzie made mistakes too.
Of course.
He made a few passes that
one tip. Yeah.
There were a few that were mistakes that just didn't. The outcome wasn't bad.
I think there's also
I will say he also made.
He
also made some decisions where he threw the ball away when he should have too, when he didn't have it.
And he also, again, I always tell people there's a trade-off for what you want. You can't have just the perfect everything. Like, we want a better passing quarterback. We have the better passing quarterback. Now, he's going to make some throws that are like, because he's young. He's his second game actually playing college football. He's a young kid. So he made a few questionable plays. He made some splash plays. It's the same thing, like you said, with McKenzie Milton. So he's not going to go 20 for 25 the rest of the season. Now, if he does, we might be cooking with grease if he does. But that's just an unrealistic.
I mean, if he does, throw $1 million at him or whatever else we got to do to keep him. Because 20 and 25, 11.8 yards per pass, 3 TDs, 0 turnovers, 55 yards, 6 yards per carry.
There's also something to be said that there was essentially no tape on him. So I think, Arizona.
That's what I'm worried about a little bit, Alan, is it's hard to game plan. That's one of the advantages you have. When you don't know what the offense can be, you don't really know how to game plan. You kind of game plan, because that last drive was garbage time. Even though it was great for us, it was garbage time. You don't really break that down and try to say, okay, this is the offense they're going to run.
Right.
So they didn't have any tape on it.
I will say this, though. They've got more tape to look at than they did before, because before the tape on us was stack the box and just rush everybody, right? So no matter what, he made throws that he was accurate in the short game. He was accurate in the middle of the field, 10 to 20 yards. He was accurate in the long. That one pass was it Jacoby that was, or was it Kobe that was streaking on that?
Kobe on the right sideline.
Yeah, on the right sideline.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
he
be
put it.
honest.
Yeah, that was a
not
perfect
that bad of a
pass.
though. Yeah, Kobe kind of pulled up, which I understand why, but that wasn't that bad of a pass.
And he ran. He was able to be mobile in the pocket.
Yeah.
And then you've got RJ Harvey, who, by the way, it moved into second place for the total number of yards ever for a UCF running back, and who was hurt for a portion of his eligibility, right? So he didn't get the full opportunity there. And he carried the ball 22 times for 184 yards, 8.4 yards per carry, and 3 TDs.
And so
he's Go ahead.
Go ahead, Trey.
No, I mean RJ. I mean, we've talked about it like early in the season.
Is he better than Kevin Smith? Yes or no?
No, he's not better than Kevin Smith. But
I think he's in a clear tier now. Like he's in him and Kevin Smith and everybody else.
Yeah. He's the second best running back in UCF history, which is like it's like not an insult. It's like when people say like whether you think LeBron or Michael, it's like, oh, you're saying they're the second best. It's not that bad. Like he's the second best running back in school history.
He definitely runs differently, and the other part about this, that's the asterisk on all of this, since we like to talk about asterisks, is he's been doing this against much stiffer competition than what Kevin Smith did.
Yeah, and obviously less carries for sure, but also I think he's closer to Kevin Smith than any other running back in UCF history is close to him. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
like
the Cleopatra model
atmosphere.
Yeah.
I think Kevin Smith is a clear one. Then I think RJ is a clear 2, and then after that, there's
there is no debate.
They've separated themselves.
There's no debate, and it's. I mean, there's something to say that he did it against better competition, but I don't know when you and I know we looked up and Kevin Smith had an insane amount of carries, but at the same time, like you could also make the counter argument that like Kevin Smith didn't have as much around him either.
Yeah, he was the whole offense.
Yeah, and he was still able to do it. Like talk about stacking the box. Like okay, that should have been the clear cut thing to do, especially against a George O'Leary team, against a running back that's all they did. They essentially didn't pass because Kyle Israel. Love that guy, but wasn't a top tier quarterback. And Kevin Smith was still breaking off 80-yard runs. Almost every single game was breaking off 80 to 90-yard touchdown runs. So yeah, RJ has definitely put himself into a new tier. But one other thing about Rizk before we move on, I thought one of the more impressive stats that he had was he was 3 for 4 for 124 yards and 2 TDs on deep passes, which is 20 yards or over. And he was 8 for 8 for 119 yards and a TD when blitzed. So he was a perfect passer when he got blitzed. And that is not something you could say about Jacurri or KJ or any quarterback we've seen.
Even if he's 50-50, right? Like the mid-range part of the field is what I was looking for, because
he could get on that too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. KJ sucked at it, right? Jacurri sucked at it, right?
AJ didn't have enough sample size.
He had 2 series. I mean, you can't look at EJ. Plus, he didn't have as much time in the system either, right?
Correct.
So to me, when we're making these comparisons, one of the things that I was looking for, because one of the things that was JRP's biggest hamstrings too, right, is that the middle range throws. Though those were his. That's what we've been lacking, which is the is the quick slants that you're hitting it from the 10 to 20 yard range, or the guys that are coming over the middle or whatever, right? That was a whole.
That's a big boy throw.
That's a big boy throw.
College, that's a big, like throwing across the middle where there's a million bodies. You can't be late. You have to be on time. It has to be perfect. You can't just throw a bullet. Like there's so much more than just loft it outside one-on-one. Those are what guys get paid to make those throws on Sundays. Not saying that he's that level, but those are the throws that separate, like you say, a average throwing quarterback to a really good to a high level.
And that's why I was impressed, right? Because those those other throws are going to be 50-50 balls by and large. And again, one of those long throws that he had was that Hail Mary, right?
Yeah.
And one of those TDs was a Hail Mary. So you take that off the board. He still performed really, really well. I'd like to see some more reps for those long passes to see if he can throw those in the breadbasket like he did on some of those.
Mm-hmm.
But what I am most happy and impressed with was those mid-range throws, because to your point, Trey, you have to have timing right. You have to be smart enough to understand where the defense is, whether it's in a zone coverage or not, or a man coverage. You need to understand where those guys are sitting at and where they're going to be. And for the future, the better defenses that we're going to face, here was the great thing that I saw out of the Arizona defense that I think that was good for him. They played 3 down linemen, right?
Yeah.
And because they played 3 down linemen, that means you've got dime packages you've got to deal with, right? And you've got to deal
kind of stuff.
Exactly. And so that means he was smart enough to be able to read the defenses to be able to make those throws when you needed to make them. And I don't know if the average fan is aware or understands like how difficult that is, but that's more impressive to me and gives me more confidence when we start playing better defenses that are going to have exotic blitzes or exotic coverages that are setting up the big thing that I'm going to see, that I think we're going to see for Dylan Rizk for defenses to test him, is they're going to drop people in that are going to show, no matter if they're 4 down linemen or 3 down linemen, they're going to show blitz that are going to drop in coverage, whether it be linebackers or otherwise. We've got a tight end that is in Randy Pittman, right? That is the cure to that type of defense. That's the safety. For that type of defense when he sees it, right? Because he's going to have a matchup against a linebacker. And Randy Pittman, what is great about Randy Pittman is not only is he a great pass catching tight end, but he runs like a receiver, right? Yeah. So if he's got enough size that he's basically a big receiver out there, and that's going to help Dylan Rizk. And if he's smart enough to be able to read a 3 down lineman defense and understand it and make those middle range throws, that bodes well for what he's going to be long-term at UCF.
Yeah. And Dylan Rizk played at Cardinal Gibbons High School. He won a state championship his senior year. And just so happens that like a family friend of my, on my wife's side is her son played with Dylan Rizk at Cardinal Gibbons, and he wound up being an all-state tight end. He plays at Georgia now. And so like the connection with the tight end is not new to Dylan Rizk by any means, because the kid's name is Colton Heinrich and he plays at Georgia, but like, and he was one of those guys that kind of came out of nowhere his junior year and really solidified himself his senior year. And that's due to his hard work, but certainly the relationship that he had with Dylan Rizk and having him be his quarterback. He's no stranger to getting the tight end involved and knowing where to find him on the field. So that's a big thing. And the 2 guys that we're featuring on the offensive side of the ball are the ones that I think are just great storylines. I mean, Dylan Rizk just kind of seizing his opportunity a week ago, where, whether the rumors are true about EJ not wanting to go into that game, honestly, that's it, whether they're true or not, it kind of doesn't matter. There's no knock on EJ if that's the case, in my opinion. But for Dylan to go into that game and say, I'm going to show something, I'm going to show my coaches something that I should not be on the bench. And regardless of where he started at 4th string, and regardless of, we're kind of like screaming at our television sets that why didn't Gus see this sooner? I think it's something to be said about seizing an opportunity like that and really kind of taking control of your own moment. And I think that's why that fans are just so excited about Dylan Rizk, myself included. And then on top of that, RJ Harvey, right? Like we talked about him being in a rare air with Kevin Smith up there in the conversation as the greatest running back to ever step foot on this school at the school. And he is somebody who struggled with injuries, came over. He was a quarterback at Virginia. He was a quarterback in high school, came over here willing to be a running back, willing to accept multiple different schemes that have come through in his time here at UCF, kind of do whatever's asked of him. And even Gus Malzahn said in his press conference that he's not the type of guy that he's a quiet leader. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
And he took control at the hotel the night before and spoke to the entire team and, said some, energetic words and fiery words. And he was not like, he was going to make sure that that 5-game losing streak was snapped the next day. And for him to just kind of, for as much as Dylan Rizk, deserves a lot of praise for this game, it's wild to see 184 yards go kind of unnoticed. Like that's an incredible.
Oh, yeah.
He could have had 5 touchdowns in this game, by the way. Like RJ Harvey could have easily had 5 touchdowns in this game. But he doesn't care. He doesn't care that Ja'Cory Brown came in on the 10-yard line and he ran a sweep and he went outside and he scored the touchdown. Like he seems like the ultimate team guy. And so those two guys, like Dylan Rizk kind of seizing his moment and RJ Harvey kind of continuing his great career, which started a little bit rocky at UCF. I don't think anybody, when he transferred from Virginia, we're going to say that he was going to be in the same conversation as Kevin Smith when he first started it.
No.
I mean, and that's not even a knock on him. It's just like
I don't think we'll ever bring a running back in. I don't know a running back who we're like, he's going to be Kevin Smith. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible what he's done. I think that he's gonna go down as one of those like special players that you hear the name and you're like, man, that guy is he's the man. Like he's gonna be a knight. He's a knight for life.
He's gonna be a Hall of Famer, right? So
yeah, I think so.
Going back to kind of throw some weird stats at you, right? So Pittman, 5 catches, 80 yards, 2 TDs. One of them was the Hail Mary, right? Hudson, 4 catches, 58 yards, right? So as much as we talk about Kobe Hudson, we use the tight end in this game. It hurt. But something we haven't, and I want to pivot here real quick. Pivot. All right, let's talk about defense.
Yeah.
Ethan Barr, 10 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 fumble recovery. Tennyson, who we didn't have against BYU, 5 tackles, 1 TFL. Ricky Barber, 4 tackles, 2.5 tackles for a loss, 1.5 sacks. Nigel Kelly, a 0.5 sack. He's back. Remember, we were talking about him. Malachi Lawrence, 2 sacks. What was interesting was what Barber said about the defense and the defensive coaching in his press conference this week. He was asked what was the difference for this defense and why they were able to get the sacks. Dalen Dodson was his answer. Dalen Dodson kept the edge and allowed the DTs. And I didn't even mention Lee Hunter. Lee Hunter was all over the field too. They were able to get after him and keep him in the pocket. That was what was the difference between Iowa State and this game that we played. He could not roll out. And Fafita is one of the best running quarterbacks that's out there, right? And he's going to be an NFL player. And they were able to keep him within the to make him climb the ladder and run right into the defensive tackles. And that was the big difference with this game. And one of the other things that was asked with regard to coaching, they allowed them to run their game is what was said. So basically, instead of having to stay in their lanes, the ends were able to, they had to maintain the edge, and the tackles and the defensive tackles were basically running twists and a bunch of other things and basically let off the leash. They didn't have to maintain those lanes. So that allowed them the freedom to be able to win. Team stats, UCF, 33 first downs. 33 first downs, 14 first downs for Arizona. Arizona was 50% on third downs. I'd still like to see that be a little bit lower. Now, they did a lot better in the second half. And in the second half, Arizona tends to be a second half team. Fafita did a good job and so did T-Mac. We started to see who they were. They got theirs, right? But we did enough damage on the front end. UCF outgained Arizona. Now think about this: 602 yards to 261 with relatively the same time of possession. A minute and a half difference in time of possession there. 602 yards to 261. UCF outgained Arizona 308 yards to 5 in the ground game. 308 to 5. They had 5 yards on 25 carries. 5 yards on 25 carries against a P14.
Yeah.
I mean, this was complete domination. This was OSU part 2 from, is there something to be said about the space game? I mean, you talked about the energy, right?
And the
I think
rain.
part of that is the space game.
Mhm.
I think part of that is, we're different. What did Alan say? Like, this was the last thing that Gus Malzahn could have trashed was the space game. We're 8-0. We're 8-0 in convincing fashion the last 2 years.
Every win's been by double digits in the space game, every single one, and most of them by a lot, not just a small.
20.
So-
I think the average win is 26 points or something like
Might
that.
be more now. And
Yeah.
someone put like 55 grand on the game, like game day, and just doubled their money. I mean, that's it's really amazing. It's really amazing, and it is something that Gus has not. No one has ruined. No one has ruined. So it's wonderful. Like it hasn't been ruined since Trey was on the field, right? So we're good.
Wow.
We didn't have the
We
space game.
didn't have the
Started
space
with
game until
Frost.
Frost was there.
Started with Frost.
Well, that's what I'm saying. No one.
We won every one.
Yeah, I think Roger took that the wrong way. I'm saying it. Yes, exactly. Since Trey was on the football field, we have not been defeated, and we've always had really good games.
I get what you're saying now.
Yeah,
You're basically calling me old.
it's
Yes,
not that.
you are.
Look at
You-
this.
You were
Look at this.
definitely
You're
old,
not
Trey.
old.
No, I'm
Dude,
old.
until you got gray in your beard like I do, I don't want to hear anything. You were not
That's right.
sir.
Football wise, I'm old.
It's true.
So going back to what we were talking about, this defense, right? UCF had a season best in sacks, 4 sacks in this game. It again, I told you guys last week, I think this is UCF building, right? We were building off of the things that we were doing before. Last against BYU, we had 3 of our starting defensive backs out. We got 2 of the 3 back this week. It showed. Brandon Adams was not back this week. Hopefully we get him back because obviously Henderson did not was not a good replacement. Although he was playing against T-Mac, so that's going to be a long day for anybody. He's going to be he's going to probably be a first rounder, I think. So 10 tackles for a loss. 10 tackles for a loss this game. Passing yards, 294. Lowest rushing yards allowed in a game since 2019 against FAMU. Thank you, Alan, for that stat. That's a pretty big stat. From the PFF side of things, offensively, 82.1, second best of the season, and we're talking about against a P4 team. Jacoby Jones led the way, believe it or not, 90.5. Dylan Riss, 90.1. Amari Kite, which we were talking about the offensive line, 80.7. Harvey, 76.5. Pittman, 72.9. And it goes on and on again. Defense, 67.7. So this wasn't the highest, but it's pretty darn good. Harris ranked the highest, 82.1. Jamal Johnson, 81.9. Lee Hunter, 76.2. Ethan Barr, 74.7. And the much maligned Quadric Bullard, 72.1. Look, at the end of the day, UCF fans, this was the game that we've been waiting for. This is the game that took all of the pressure off that's been building for a really long time. And I think when we talked about, I've been talking about copium versus hopium these past 3 weeks. This is the hopium game. So let's hope that we continue that against Arizona State, which is a much better opponent. Okay. So speaking of Arizona State, let's talk a little bit about those guys. One of the things that we want to talk about when you talk about Arizona State is Cam Skattebo, right? Here's the thing about Cam Skattebo. As good as RJ Harvey is, Skattebo is averaging about 8 yards less per game than what RJ Harvey is. And what's different about him, RJ Harvey is great because he's a patient runner, right? And he can make you miss with jump cuts and a bunch of other stuff that he does behind the line. Skattebo is as difficult to tackle as what RJ Harvey is once he starts going in a straight line. And this is going to be one of the big keys to this game is we've been getting a lot of fumbles, etc. You see guys punching the ball, the first guy that gets to him. This game, the first guy that gets to him has got to attempt to tackle him to either slow him down enough to gang tackle him and then let those guys try to punch the ball out. I do not want to see an Isaiah Nixon move where we're trying to punch the ball as the first tackler. Not against Skattebo, right? We do open up as a 3.5 point underdog. Now, given we're playing at Arizona State, 3 points is usually given to the home team. ASU is 6-2 and 3-2 in the Big 12. They're coming off a 42-21 win over OSU, which isn't saying much. Sorry to Calvin, my buddy on the Big 12 huddle. But OSU sucks this year. I'm sorry. It looks like they've given up on the field. ASU is averaging 31 points per game. So we don't have to score 56 to win this game. Third most in rushing yards in the Big 12 and bottom 5 in the conference in passing yards. They do get their quarterback back. They did get him back last week. He was out against Cincinnati. Defensively, they give up the 4th least yards per game and 2nd least rushing yards per game, and they only allow 23 points per game. This is a good defense with a good running game, which makes them a difficult team to play against, and is why they're 6-2. Skattebo, as good as RJ Harvey is the 7th leading rusher in the country. So again,
he's doubtful to play.
That's what they say.
Yeah,
allegedly,
probably end up
allegedly. I don't believe that for a lick, right? When we're talking about ASU, this is what I see in ASU. I see UCF, this last week's UCF, right, with a more experienced quarterback. So the question is going to be, can Dylan Rizk perform at least half as good or 3/4 of good as he did this past week? Because that's really the difference between these two teams. They're both going to be good defensive teams. They're going to have a solid running game. And the winner of this game, I think, is going to be which quarterback plays better. What do you guys think?
I mean, yeah. Also, I think we should mention too, Arizona State's coach, Kenny Dillingham, is on the Gus Malzahn coaching tree. He was the offensive coordinator at Auburn in 2019. And he led, he was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, which is when Bo Nix was there and was the SEC Rookie of the Year. And Auburn that year actually had the most improved offense from the prior season in the entire SEC. So I think this is kind of a pride game for both coaches. I would assume that, Dillingham wants to beat his old boss, and I would assume that Gus Malzahn does not want to lose to a 35-year-old coach that, was an assistant of his that essentially has turned Arizona State around in his first season on campus. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think they play, like you said, Roger, very similar to us. Like all of their statistics are very similar. They have a much better run defense than passing defense, and they have a better run game than passing game. So they have a lot of similarities to us. It's always tough playing on the road, and we obviously haven't played great on the road or in general this year.
They play well in night games on the road too.
Yeah, it's a 5 o'clock game there, 7 o'clock game. I guess on the East Coast. So it's going to be tough, but I think if we can obviously replicate even, like you said, 50% of how we played this past week, we have a good shot. And I think, what, Rizk did was just injected new life into the fan base, into his teammates, just all around that you feel like hopeful again. Obviously I don't think we can expect 20 of 25 every week and 300 plus yards, but you feel like he's capable enough that now this spread being 3 feels like a real spread compared to the last few weeks when we were getting favored, just felt ridiculous and automatic money if you wanted to bet against UCF. But now it feels like this is going to be a competitive game regardless. Yeah, he may make some mistakes and whatnot, but I like I said in the beginning of the podcast, I just think the mere threat of a passing attack just opens up our offense and makes us so much more dynamic. But yeah, it's gonna be tough. Arizona State has some really good players on their team. Their running back, which I think, like we all said, we assume he'll play, is just as dynamic, and it's going to be very, he has very few games where he gets, shut down. As good as our D line has been recently, it's going to be a tough matchup. But I think that 3-point spread is very fair, and I don't see any reason why this wouldn't be a competitive game. I think you're on mute, Roger.
You're muted, Roger.
Gents, do you have anything to bring up with regard to ASU? Sorry about that. I started the Big 12 huddle video as I was pulling on the listener love comments from the YouTube channel. So what do you guys have for ASU?
I mean, I think Alan and I are both going to be there, so we'll see what we can do with that.
Okay, so are you saying that we're going to get YouTube shorts from combined YouTube shorts effort from the both of you?
Well, maybe I'm gonna be at a tailgate a few hours beforehand. We'll see. I rented a really nice car out there, so it's so nice a car. I have to look at YouTube to figure out how to open the doors because they're butterfly doors.
Butterfly doors.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so
I can tell you how to do that.
I'm sure you can. You have fancy cars. I will say this. I've driven by that stadium before, and I've been to the campus before, and I'm really excited to see how it is when there are fans in the stadium, because the last time I was there, they were not doing good for many years. It was very... I drove by at one point past the game, and it didn't sound like it would sound at almost any decent UCF game. So I'm really excited for that. I do feel like if we see a 70 or 80% of what we saw from Dylan Rizk as that player, that energy that Trey was talking about, that type of energy is going to be infectious, and it's going to make it more of a competitive game than most of the people that I'm going with. They're like, oh, I'm excited about this game again, right? I feel like that's what's going to happen, and you're going to see it both in the stands and you're going to see it on the TV for those of you who aren't going to be in Arizona. So I'm expecting... I see why the line is close. I mean, we have been picked to win many times, right?
These are two very similar teams, and with Dylan Rizk, honestly, I don't even want to say 70 to 80%. If we see 60% of what he did,
that's fair.
That's going to be a dub for you.
I don't know, y'all are.
No, I'm serious. Think about it. If our defense plays like it did, their quarterback is good, but he's not great. He's not the difference maker, right? It's our strength on defense this season, believe it or not, has been against the run game. Guess what we wanted out of Ted Roof? Stop the run game. What have we been pretty effective at doing is stopping the run game, right? That's their biggest weapon. If we can stop the run game and Dylan Rizk is 60% of what he was against Arizona, we've got a pretty good chance of winning this game, even though it's on the road. I'm just saying. I think it's going to be a close game. Let's not get into the score predictions just yet.
Yeah. From what I heard,
60% is hard because the reason I say that, Arizona is not a running team, so I expected us to shut that run game down. Arizona State is a running team. Now, Do I expect us to shut the run game down? I don't want to say shut it down, but I do expect them to try to slow it down. And that's where it's going to be. If we can't stop the run, I mean, you know the formula with us. If we don't stop the run, we struggle for the most part.
Yeah.
Which is why I say I don't think Dylan Rizk is 60%. I'm with you. Like, he has to be at least 75% where he was at. 60 is you're asking a lot for the defense, in my opinion. That's just me, in my opinion.
Well, I
What I
think
heard is that Josh is going to be there at this game, so if we lose, we can just blame Josh. So we're all.
so. Hold on. Are you going to
always
do
do
your
it.
are you going to do your opposing shorts? Opposing fan base shorts on yourself? Is that what's going to happen?
we'll figure it out. I don't know. I signed up for like a 3-hour tailgate, so I'll see what I can do. I have
just
nothing
bring
else.
the Lambo. Just bring the Lambo right out there. I'm sure if you open up the scissor doors, you'll get plenty of opposing fan base people to come by and give you a score predictions. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And then if you bring Alan on top of that, and he doesn't wear a hat and lets his hair fly loosely, then I think you'll be good to go.
I think Alan is bringing someone to the game, and I only have 2 seats in this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Let's. With that being said, let's go ahead and review last week's picks. All right, Week 10, Arizona. Alan and Trey, you both just you picked Arizona. So Alan had 34-21 Arizona. Trey had 31-20 Arizona. Arizona did not score anywhere close to those scores. So that leaves us with the UCF contingent. Ben, 24-17 UCF. You were closer on the Arizona score than you were on the UCF score.
Well, from what I had seen up until this game, we had to basically stop them from scoring to have a chance. That's for sure.
I honestly think you may have been closest to the pin, even being said that. Having said that, right? Nobra had 28-24 UCF, right? I had 32-28 UCF. And Josh had 34-31 UCF. Considering how close you were to the Arizona score, I'd actually have to go back and do the math to see who was closest to the pin. But
that
either
might
way,
be Ben.
It might be just enough on the.
I'm not doing the math. I've driven for 9 hours from
You're
Atlanta
only 5
today.
points away from the Arizona score.
Yeah, but how far away from the UCF score?
20.
You were all far.
The closest was Ben
was Josh to the
our
UCF
score.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Either way,
we all predicted UCF to win, so except
everybody but Alan and Trey win this week. So let's just put it that way. All right.
No. We're not doing that. Only one winner. That's
what?
It.
Okay.
The winner is sleep for Roger.
100%. I need it. Okay, let's talk about Week 10 score predictions for ASU, folks. What are let's go around the horn and figure out what we've got. And as always, let's go ahead and bring Nobra back to the stage. Angry Nobra. All right. So we've got Angry Nobra back. Let's go ahead and start with Trey Neal this week. Trey Neal, what is your score prediction for this week?
I'm gonna go 30-23. Arizona State. I'm sorry. I have to see it one more time.
Wow.
I can't. As excited as I am for what I see, I don't want this to be the Oklahoma State, the one Gus game a year. If it's not, that's what I don't want. So I want to be wrong again. That's just my.
You said 30-27 ASU.
30-23.
23. Wow.
That's a touchdown. It's not bad. On the road, that's a good game.
All right. Okay. Ben Stout, what do you have? And I will confirm he did text it this week. So
I have 34-28 good guys. I think Dylan is going to be able to do his thing, but really just do enough to open up the run game for RJ. I think we're going to have another good game on the ground, which is going to help the defense out. And hopefully they're the defense that wears down and not necessarily us, it'll be a relatively close one, but I think we pull it out.
All right, no, bro, what you got, bro?
I got, where is it? 45-20 UCF.
Whoa!
Yeah, let's go. Bring the
That's
energy,
bigger than I
bro.
thought.
I love it.
All right.
Blowout City in Arizona.
All right. Nobra is clearly back on the bandwagon. Alan,
Indeed.
what have you got this week?
I'm inclined to pick Arizona State, but I don't think I'm going to. But so Arizona State is 4-0 at home this year. In the 3 games at home against Power 4 teams, every single game has been in single digits. And I think that trend continues. I do think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to go with a little heart prediction here. I'm going to go 33-30 UCF.
All right. Who were the other teams at home that were P4?
They beat Mississippi
Kansas.
State at home 30-23. They beat Kansas at home 35-31, and they beat number 16 at the time, Utah 27-19 at home, and then they beat we said Power 4, and then they beat Wyoming at home, but that was
okay. So thank you for making my point. All right. Repeat who you just said. What were the teams?
I mean,
What were the 4 P4 teams that you said?
What were the P4 teams?
Mississippi State, Utah, and Kansas.
All right, thank you. Josh, what was your picks?
So I agree.
I'm not gonna lie, Josh. I don't understand the point. I'm sorry. Maybe I missed something.
Utah sucks this year. Kansas sucks this year. And Mississippi State?
Usually, but I think it's twofold. One, they aren't great teams, but who are we? And also,
what I'm saying is, don't put too much credence into the teams that they beat at home. Is what I'm trying to say.
It's more about us than they're still 4-0 at home, and we have 1 road win all year. So I'm not gonna sit there and
but we're also not playing with.
All
right. Let's keep
one
going.
good win all year.
But my point is
Sam Houston 7-2.
You got a different quarterback, right? So again, my point is,
I can clear this up right now, guys. I won last week. I did the math, by the way.
Exactly. Thank you. Ben won.
Right. How close were you versus everybody else?
37 points was the differential for me. Both Noah and Roger were at 40 points, and Josh was at 41.
What? Josh was at what?
41. Just outside.
Wow, Josh is the biggest winner.
It was that Arizona score that got you, man. It was the 12 versus the 31.
All right, so we were all pretty close. We were all pretty close to the pin, and we all got the win, and that's all that matters. All right, Josh.
Listen,
Trey, we have one winner when Roger is the one winner.
Yeah, Sam Houston 7-2, New Hampshire's 5-4. We have good wins. I don't know what you're talking about.
Are we in the year 2000 again? What happened?
Look. At the end of the day, Arizona State puts up points. Like one weird game against Cincinnati away that they just couldn't do anything. Right.
Well, remember their quarterback was missing that game.
That's fair. And that's probably why they got the L. Their quarterback is not going to be missing this game. Who knows if Skattebo is going to be at the game? It probably will be. And I still think that UCF is going to win. And they better, because I want to see a road win. 38-27 UCF. We're going to beat them by more than a touchdown.
All right. I like it. Last but not least, last but not least this week. Roger, I'm going to come in with I was going to say 38-21, but since Josh went 38, I'm going to go 32-24 UCF. We do just enough. Our running game gets going. We keep them guessing, and I think that the one strength that we have defensively, and the one strength that we've been seeing more of, is our ability to pressure the quarterback. So I think Chandler will definitely be pressured this week, and I think that Skattebo is going to be in trouble, especially after the linebacker performance from last week. So I'm going to say 32-24 UCF. Arizona State is a good team. I kind of make fun of who they won against at home. I don't think that's indicative of what kind of environment that's at home, but it is a good team because it has solid defense and a good running game. You have those two things, it's always going to be a tough out. So hopefully UCF can get ahead a little bit earlier, and it isn't a time of possession type of game. And I think we win, but I think it'll be closer for most of the game unless we can get some turnovers early. All right. Thank you guys for all of that. I'm glad to see that everybody but Trey thinks that UCF is going to win. So Trey, I really hope you're buying us steak next week. That being said, let's go ahead and pivot. All right, Big 12 football score recaps for Week 10. Texas Tech upsets ISU 23-22. That is an upset. I picked ISU this week. I expected them to win handily. Texas Tech is an offensive team, but that played defense this week. I did tell you guys that ISU played good enough defense to win this game because Texas Tech has a high octane offense. It's nothing for them to score between 48 and 56 points. So they stopped them. They just didn't win. Here's one that's the biggest upset of the week for me. Houston upsets Kansas State 24-19.
Yep.
K-State was a team that I said, early on that I didn't trust, but they kind of the last few weeks have kind of earned my trust. Houston has a good defense. They've had a good defense all year long. I didn't expect them to beat K-State 24-19.
Houston has won 3 out of their last 4 games and now have 3 conference wins. They're pretty good compared to at least last year.
They still don't have an offense, but they have a good defense.
But they're winning games.
They're winning one more conference win than we have.
Yeah, I know. I get that. But my point is that Houston all year long has had a good defense. That's kept them in games.
Their offense is awful. Yeah.
Their offense is awful. And so defense wins championships. ASU beats OSU 42-21. We talked about that. I don't read too much into that. OSU is in free fall right now. Baylor beats TCU 37-34. That didn't surprise me. I picked TCU on the Big 12 huddle in this game, but Baylor's defense has stepped it up, and they've consistently gotten better all year long. I actually picked them the week before, and to me, this was a toss-up game, and clearly they won. Big 12 with 4 ranked teams still. ISU drops to number 17. BYU stays at number 9. They were off this week. Kansas State down to number 22 and Colorado up to 21. They were also off this week. BYU is one of the 5 remaining undefeated teams left in the country. We talked about hoops already, so let's go ahead and get a little listener love in this week. I apologize to those of you that heard the Big 12 huddle earlier when Alan was trying to speak, but I was bringing up our very active comment section for the past week or so. So let me shout out DHP Cards, W Predictions. Absolutely true on this one. Thank you for viewing in this comment. This was in regards to Josh's BYU score prediction. Gonzo in 60 seconds, 30, 132-31 pause, and some clapping hands. That was pretty funny last week. We need to get to calling them out on the show like that. Thank you for continuing to support us. And that was the pause. So guys, let's keep that going. Pitstoner 1974. I think position coaches are responsible for getting kids ready, and better coordinators take that product and devise plans to use them. Verduzco was QB coach, not OC. It's not Gus's sole responsibility to get guys ready. That's not getting done, obviously, QB-wise. The one guy they ignored is the only one that hasn't been ruined. And our response, usually the OC has a specialty as well. They're also to step in. They are also there to step in when needed, when a group is struggling, etc. So thank you, Pitt Stoner. Then Pitt Stoner 1974 also says the Vegas lines have nothing to do with predicting a score. It's to get money. It's to get people to bet money on both sides, blaming the betting public, not Vegas. It wasn't just Vegas. The FPI also predicted us to win.
And the
So
thing with that,
It's not a prediction, but it's still indicative of what the
Vegas
score is
is
going to be.
Yeah, they're not going to put anything outlandish just to get money. Like they're going to put something relatively similar. And
But
relatively
UCF
close to
being
what they say.
-1 against the number 9 team in the nation was outlandish. I mean,
That was outlandish.
I mean,
but
I
like I said, I think that just goes to what even with that game, there has always been a clear talent gap with who BYU can recruit and who we can recruit. Now, like you said, Alan, they must not have been watching the past 4 weeks before that, which is possible. But I think Vegas
probably lost money on that game. Like over,
Yeah,
the betting
1,000%.
public took. I think it was something like 65% took the BYU. So they did lose that game. I mean, it's not. The guy's right. It's not a prediction, but it's still indicative of what the score, what they're, setting the line is what the score is going to be. So that was still a ridiculous, line in my opinion. But yeah.
All right. So pivoting to our Twitter account. So thank you all. And as a reminder, everybody who commented on the channel, please keep those going. We love it. Appreciate the conversation. As well as our Twitter and our other socials. MD Knight 2016, a longtime listener going back to the Nightline days. He came with the receipts, right? So one of the things that I mentioned last week was the points allowed per minute relative to how the defense was doing relative to our time of possession. So he came through and he said UCF defense points allowed per minute. And he went from 2016 to 2024. 2016, 9.8 points allowed per minute. 2017, 10.3. Dang, Troy. 2018, 8.6. 2019, 6.4. Great defensive year that year. 2021, 10.1. 2022, 11.3. 2023, 10.8. 2024, 6.7. So that was the second lowest since 2016. The only one that beat that was 2019. So the point was, for those of you that were going back and forth, Ted Roof did a good job in the points per minute. Our offense needed to our offense needed to step it up in time of possession. Shea did not agree with that. The point was Ted Roof. Ted Roof is absolutely, I can't say this on because we're E for everyone. I don't care what the stats say. As our response, not disagreeing that he wasn't the right guy, but the team did make progress and the defense wasn't the problem. We got to a point where it was slightly better than average and we're getting pressure and turnovers. Shea comes back. Shea Atkinson 93 says, I agree. But the coverage on the pass was so bad, any QB could make any throw that they wanted. So I do think there's an opportunity for that. Stephen Leonard also chimed in and said, to be honest, probably not a great stat when UCF gave up an 18-play scoring drive and they struggled to get off the field on 3rd and 4th downs. Mike MD Knight 2016 says, yes, it is. It shows the amount of points they give up despite how long they're on the field. So there was
football is not people listen. Football is not that complicated. We can watch the game. Forget the stats. Our defense has looked better. One thing that you can compare, our defense points per whatever stat you put out. I'm not an advanced guy. I just watch it. Our defense was high risk, high reward when I played. We're going for interceptions. We're going for the ball. Well, we're going to give up points. You know why we did that? Because we played complementary football. We have the number 1 offense in the country. Who cares if we give up 30 points? They're scoring 50. Let's just give them the ball back. Then we get to 2019. They're playing more sound, but they didn't have the number 1 offense in the country. when you watch these things,
Well,
like
I
I
mean,
get the point of that.
the difference was for you guys, right? Was you were going for turnovers, right? That was the
That's what he
biggest
means
thing.
by
Everything that you
turnovers.
were doing, the defense was predicated on trying to get turnovers, right?
And
but
we were a top 5 team in the country, I believe, in turnovers.
Yeah,
Like,
and that
That's
was
why.
to get your high octane high octane offense.
Easy for you.
ball back.
The ball back, right?
Exactly.
My point in saying that last week, and I think what MD Knight was trying to illustrate and gave the receipts for, was this defense did progress. The problem was time of possession and how long they were hung out on the field.
Correct.
With BYU, it was over 40 minutes. Over 40 minutes. We possessed the ball less than 20 minutes that game. That's ridiculous.
But to me, like, if you know your offense is struggling, which was blatantly obvious, you have to take chances. So, like, yeah, we're not giving up a lot of points per minute because we're on the field forever, but we're not creating turnovers. We're not causing any rabbit. We're just a bend, don't break defense that still breaks at the end of the day. Like, that's
so you mean like going for it with 1 yard to go on the 50-yard line?
I agree. Yeah, like those are the things you
like
have
we
to
said
play
last
complementary. Week. Like football is. That's why I say like don't complicate it, because you can watch our defense and see we were clearly not the main problem. Our defense wasn't a strong suit. Now, if you compare it to the offense, sure, but they were both a problem relative to fielding a good team. The offense was so glaring. That's what you talk about. But the defense, yeah, it was getting better. I agree that it is getting better. But when you have a struggling offense, you have to do something on defense to overcome that. You have to do something on defense to shake it in your favor and make turnovers, create splash plays. You can't just let them march down the field and end up scoring anyway. Like, who cares if 6 points per minute?
At the end of the day, though, bro, I mean, when you're like one of like 8 or one of 12 on third down efficiency, it doesn't matter. If you've only got one series where you're not 3 and out, it doesn't matter. You're going to wear your defense out no matter what you do. So, that was the point that I was trying to illustrate. And MD Knight came through. Thank you for that. And actually, I want to thank everyone else who participated in that conversation, right? Because you all added to the dialogue, and that's the whole point of this, right? Is it's not just what we say, but you guys having your say into it too, because that's what makes it a discussion in general. And I love that we had so much interaction this week. So let's keep that going. We appreciate every single one of you. So thank you so much. I also did apologize to Randy Watts, V-VTR. I hope you saw that, man. You didn't respond to the comment. I even put a comment out there. I hope you saw that. I totally screwed up. So that's 2 weeks in a row that I was the front end of that assuming
lose some listeners?
Huh?
You causing us to lose some listeners, man?
I'm trying not to, bro. I'm trying not to. All right. That being said, let's go ahead and pivot to Alan's depressing oxymoronic stat of the week. Do you have something that's not depressing this week?
I do actually.
All right, let's hear it.
It's just kind of a little bit what we talked about with RJ Harvey, but going a little bit further with it. So as we know, he did move into second all time in rushing yards. He is now also just 2 touchdowns away from moving into sole possession of second place for rushing touchdowns. Also, he now has back-to-back seasons with 16 touchdowns, had 16 touchdowns last year, has 16 touchdowns this year. He's the only running back in UCF history to have at least 2 seasons of 12 or more touchdowns. Not even something Kevin Smith did, Latavius Murray. No other running back has had, back-to-back, essentially double-digit touchdown seasons, which is also really impressive. With 37 touchdowns, it is not outlandish that he could end up he needs 9 touchdowns, and we have 3 games and potentially a bowl game. He has 4 games to get 9 touchdowns, which would make him have the number 1 most touchdowns in UCF history. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but he could end up surpassing Kevin Smith for total touchdowns there.
Russ is going to do it. He's going to do it.
I think
Yeah.
I think he does have a decent shot of doing it.
So I just want to make sure. Are you talking about rushing touchdowns only, right? I just want to make
Only
sure.
rushing touchdowns.
Okay,
I'm not. I'm not talking about total touchdowns. Just rushing. So he's about to move. He will move 100% to second for rushing touchdowns.
Nobra is totally confused right now. Look at him.
What?
He's trying to figure it out. He's doing the math.
There's not that much math to figure out. So then, as far as single season too, with one more touchdown, he'll have the second most touchdowns, rushing touchdowns in a single season, which would surpass Isaiah Bowser. He's tied with Isaiah Bowser right now with 16, which is
That's crazy that Isaiah Bowser is second.
Second and for a single season. Yep. So that was that year that just Gus Malzahn gave him the ball on every single goal line situation.
Well, I mean, how could you not? I mean, that dude was a wrecking ball. It was like it was like a running back version of a refrigerator Perry. Like you just hand the ball off and he's gonna run everybody over.
Yeah, so he'll obviously surpass that. So essentially, he'll be second in every single rushing category and potentially first in touchdowns. And then one other thing I thought was interesting, just we may have briefly mentioned this on another podcast, but four players in the last 7 years have moved into the top 10 all time at UCF in rushing touchdowns, rushing yards, receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. So kind of shows you some of the players we've had over the past 7 years. Guys like Traquan and Gabe and Adrian Killens and Greg McCrae and Isaiah Bowser. All these guys are in the top 10. It's all happened in the last 7 seasons. And one final thing, Kobe Hudson needs 130 yards, and he will move into the top 10 all time in receiving yards at UCF, which would give us 50% of the top 10 would have all come in essentially since 2017 or later. So pretty cool to see all these guys moving into the top 10.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan, for such positivity this week. It was getting a little wah, wah, wah.
Yeah.
But so Gus, what does that mean? That means keep empowering your guys to keep winning so that we can have more positive Allen stats. But those were great stats and just speaks to RJ Harvey and the special talent that RJ Harvey is. So Knights fans, please enjoy him. This is his last season. I hope he eclipses his wildest dreams in the NFL because he truly is a special running back. That being said, Josh, it's time for your sometimes funny fact of the week. Take it away, Josh.
So it is time for another Name That Coach. This 2-time terrible towel waving Super Bowl champion and Super Bowl MVP was one of the best wide receivers in the 2000s, or the aughts, as they like to say. He's now the wide receivers coach of Arizona State. TK1 crew, who's that coach?
Super Bowl MVP.
He's an Arizona State coach, you said?
Correct.
Wide receiver coach, right?
Correct.
You said terrible towel, so there's only a few. You said Super Bowl winning?
Hines Ward.
Correct. 2 times.
Is it
That's who I was going to go with, Hines Ward.
I know that's easy enough. I made it easy this week. Yeah, Hines Ward is the wide receivers coach.
You said terrible towel. I knew. I was like,
it was terrible towel plus 2 Super Bowl winning.
I didn't want to make it that hard this week. I could have taken the Pittsburgh stuff out of it. So I'm looking at.
I had an unfair advantage this week because, as you guys know, the Bengal part of my night Bengal is the Cincinnati Bengals, longtime fan that I've been kind of stuck with since birth. But that being said, I'm very familiar with the Pittsburgh Steelers, being that we are the AFC North, and Hines Ward, unfortunately, and Ben Roethlisberger, who I also knew as a UCF fan.
Oh God,
as well. So
I was at that Miami of Ohio game. That was also, remember Drew Brees at Purdue. That was also a fun game as a
UCF. No, it was not a fun game. I was at that game.
I was too,
as a student. So let's just
it
put
was
that
not
way.
fun at all. Remember Russell Wilson when he was at NC State? No.
Yes.
Listen, y'all must have been watching. Y'all had black and white TVs when y'all were in school.
Back
Listen,
in my day, you used to have things in the cow
like
pasture.
when I went to college my first year. Well, I mean all my first 4 years.
Roger, you're digging back deep, man.
Yeah, I know.
Dinosaurs
It was
walking
we were still at the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah.
And
Oh God. Yeah.
I remember the homecoming
Troughs?
queen. Yes, the troughs. I remember those. I remember fighting off. I hate to say this because this is not disparaging anybody who may find themselves in the situation as being homeless, but I remember fighting off those folks in the parking lots.
Yes.
I also remember for that game, the bowl queen was UCF was running a promotion at the time that and so was SGA, where it was the toilet bowl queen, and she walked around with a literal plunger surrounded with toilet paper, and that was the running joke at the time. And so yes, I was part of that ilk, which explains the gray hair.
So how old do you think our listeners are?
Probably
on average they
mid-30s.
They actually range. We have listeners from 18 to 65, believe it or not. If you look at
that bell curve lean more towards?
Well, the average age is 37. I'm 43, so they're not that far off.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So that being said, they probably don't remember the bowl queen, but they were there for. And interestingly enough, that timing would be what? The same timing as we had the bounce house that opened, right? And if you had any doubt in your mind, Cal fans, as to whether it matters whether you have an on-campus stadium or not, that the math tells you that there.
Look at Miami. I mean, as great as the season they're having, they still aren't filling out their stadium. I mean,
listen, they don't even have an on-campus OCS that's 100 yards long. They're still at 80 yards. So we don't want to talk about Miami. We'll just leave them where they are down in South Florida. In where are
real
they
South Florida?
Hey, Roger, I'm not gonna lie. I've seen a lot of UM polos and a lot of UM hats.
Of course.
Of course you have. They're bandwagon. They're bandwagon.
I don't blame them. It's just being in the city. It's fun seeing like just the fan base. Like, yeah, they're bandwagon. We know it. Like, it's fun.
Listen, our enclave is where Allen is, right, in Fort Lauderdale in that area. So we haven't quite made Miami. But here, you know, and I'll spend 2 seconds on this because we're 2 hours and 6 minutes in. The thing about Miami was nobody until Schnellenberger arrived. And Schnellenberger brought Miami football became Miami's team because Schnellenberger recruited the inner city of Miami, right? And there was a bunch of talent. And at that time, that was their way out of the inner city of Miami. And he embraced that, which made Miami's team. They got away from that after a lot of what happened with Miami in the 2000s. And that's where they lost their identity and a lot of their fan base. So now they're just a bandwagon fan. Fan base. So, you know, that's unfortunately where Miami is.
And if we had $2 million, we might be undefeated too. If we had Cam Ward, I'm just saying. I mean, he was. We did want him. We just couldn't afford him.
All right. So, let's go ahead and pivot and finish this up. Josh, can you please provide us with the quick update on UCF sports that Alan absolutely positively 100% does not watch?
Awesome. Well, I'd be glad to do that. Well, men's soccer, they beat South Carolina at home 4-0. I mean, that's a pretty darn good game. It's not men's soccer of last year, but this year they're ending with some wins and hopefully some progress. They're going to visit Coastal Carolina for the final regular season game Tuesday, November 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You know, we changed our clocks. And more than likely you're going to be listening to this during or after that happens. The women's soccer team, unfortunately, their season ended last week. They did not qualify for the Big 12 championship. They were in 13th place, so they will be erased from the show notes until next year. Women's volleyball did not win a set last week. They lost to Cincinnati and Texas Tech, both 0-3. And their prize for not picking up a set versus two other teams, an away game in Fort Worth versus number 18 TCU on Thursday, November 7th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard, and Waco. They're going to probably stay out there versus number 17 Baylor on Saturday, November 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope they pick up one set of those two or more. Women's basketball, they beat Edward Waters. I want to say whomever that is, but I'm sure they're a great university. I'm not familiar with them. 107-56 in an exhibition last week. The season opener is at home versus Iona this Tuesday, November 5th at 7 p.m., followed by a home game versus Marquette on Thursday, November 7th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Women's softball continues fall ball at UCF this Friday, November 8th at 8 p.m. I believe they're playing UF. I don't remember off the top of my head because I didn't put it in the notes. And men's baseball is done with fall ball. The next scheduled game you can find for them is in March 13th in Provo, Utah against BYU.
All right. So Edward Waters University. Does anybody know where that is? I do.
No. I don't even know that was a university.
Don't look it up, Josh. It's not a university, it's a college.
What's the difference, to be honest?
University has multiple colleges. Yeah.
Okay.
So Edward Waters University.
Got it?
Or Edward University's college is in Jacksonville, Florida, believe it or not. And their mascot is the Tigers, and a very poorly drawn tiger. So Edward Waters, if you need help with your athletic department, I do have a marketing department. Look me up. All right. That being said, it's been a great week of UCF sports. It's been a terrible past 5 weeks of UCF sports. Basketball, congratulations. You got us fired up.
We're a basketball podcast.
Well, yes. Trey wants us to be. We're not a basketball podcast. We still love our football, despite Ben taking it over this week. That being said, let's see what we do against ASU. I am excited about basketball. Trey, literally to his credit, has been saying this is an NCAA
Elite Eight.
Keep saying Elite Eight.
It's Elite Eight game, Elite Eight team. Let's see if that's the case. I'd love for it to be the team. What is happening right now, Josh?
My Dodgers won the World Series too.
Oh, okay. Well, so that being said, I absolutely think that this team can be something special. And the nice thing about this team is that it's young. If they keep this defensive mentality up, we do have the scorers that can score athletically when we need it. They've all been high-performing athletes at previous schools and or in high school, so this team could be special. As far as football goes, I'm hoping that the Dylan Rizk experiment continues well for the season for a myriad of reasons, but it was a great week to be a UCF fan. Thank you, everyone. Keep commenting, liking. Check us out at the Big 12 Huddle. We'll keep these hoops updates going on. Go Knights and
Charge on.
Charge on, baby.
I think this week, Josh,
What?
since Ben started off with basketball, we're going to turn to a basketball podcast.
Ooh, this is the basketball.